right, episode 13, Lane 1 Talk Show. Phil here with a special co-host today, Sean Davidson. Hi, Sean. How you doing?
Hey, Phil. I'm doing great. It's great talking with you right now.
Absolutely. Good to see you, man. Mark could not make it this episode, so Sean is stepping in to talk about the Olympic trials happening in Eugene, Oregon, starting on June 21st and going to June 30th in Eugene, Oregon at Hayward Field, historic Hayward Field. A little bit of background on Sean. He's a Hoka Aggie veteran, Olympic trials qualifier, Cal Poly legend, and the host of the Second Stringers basketball podcast, which we will link in the description. So he is a veteran podcaster himself.
Much appreciated.
Yes, it's an excellent basketball content. And Cal Poly legend, school record, or no, not school record?
Conference record.
Conference meet record in the 5,000 meters, right?
In the 10,000 meters.
In the 10,000 meters, that's right.
Yeah.
10,000 meters.
Weren't you the Big West color commentator?
Oh,
you should know all these facts.
I should have known that.
No, I'm kidding, man.
Right off
I'm sure you got names spinning in your head.
So many names, dude. So many names. Yeah, that was a lot of names. Then this is going to be a lot of names. But
I just love that we can be two Cal Poly legends just chatting it up about running right now. I will say I'm not the running trivia savant that Mark is, and I don't want to fill his shoes at all, but I'm going to do my best to keep up here. And I'm excited too to learn myself about some of these names that we have here in the trials. New year, new Olympic season. I'm ready for it. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's super exciting. It's coming up here in a few days. The Olympic trials. What is the Olympic trials? We're building America's track team, right? We're going to solidify the team that we send to Paris to represent the United States. And this is arguably one of the best track meets in the world, other than the Olympics, the World Championships. You know, it's one of the most coveted track meets and track and field events of all of them. So we are going to cover not all 22 events. We're going to cover the distance events. So we're going to cover.
I would be in a lot of trouble if we were covering all 22 events. I was like, oh man, when you first asked me to do this, I'm like, yeah, I don't really know that much.
Yeah. No, as an amateur track and field commentator myself, there's so many events, and you want to talk about names. So we love all of track and field. I love all of track and field. I've covered all of track and field. I've coached high school track and field. We are going to focus on the distance events for the men and the women for the U.S. Olympic trials here. And again, top three for the most part will qualify to represent the United States in the in Paris. So
yeah, and there are stipulations about Olympic standard times, right?
Yeah,
that would play into that.
Yes, you have to have the Olympic standard time, which a lot of the individuals we're talking about will have, but some of them don't. And that becomes that's part of the plan. That's part of the game a little bit. That factors into the equation.
Yeah, it acts as like a filter, right? Like if someone sneaks into a third place at one of these trials, but it doesn't seem like they're gonna be able to compete because their time isn't fast enough to go against the rest of the world, then I feel like that's why it's there, right?
Yeah, it serves as a filter. It serves as sort of a legitimizer. World ranking can also come into play as well. If there's an event, say the 10K this year was the Olympic standard was 27 flat for men, and if we didn't have, I think they take. I'm not exactly sure how much they take per event. Let's say they take 24, but let's say only 20 guys have the standard, then they'll go on world ranking to fill the event. So, and again, that's kind of nuanced. That's really getting into the weeds, which is kind of the cool part about track and field, because it is more like a lot of people like, don't you just like run around and they just decide? And there's a little bit more nuance to it now, right? Like there's world ranking comes into play, and you're placing. If you get beat by somebody who doesn't have a standard, how does that come into play? Like there's little things in our sport that I think are not as cut and dry as people think they are sometimes.
Would you say that track and field as a whole, like the way the sport is and the nuance that goes into it, would you say that the iceberg at the top is just like so much bigger than like other sports? Because I feel like, and maybe I'm not wording this correctly, but it just seems like, a lot of people understand running at a very base level, and a lot of people understand like basketball or football or baseball at a very base level, but the like difference between the people at the top and the people that are at like the second tier, it just seems like it's unattainable almost for those second level tier track athletes to get up to the top level.
Yeah, it does seem a little unattainable. There is a little bit of a gap there, and I think that comes with, access to resources. You have professionals that have like, they can train and nap and all that.
Napping's important.
That napping is a big importance there. I think that, yeah, because you could kind of be a solid sort of regional athlete or a US. You can go to one of these sound running events, or you can go to like a US Grand Prix and like get top 3 or top 4 and win prize money, get TV time, and like fulfill some of your sponsors' needs. But then you look at kind of like that elite level that like, I'm going to the Olympics level. Yeah, I think you're right. I think that the, it does seem like so, it seems unattainable sometimes. It's like, right. Wow, it's like, I'm a 27-40 guy, right? I'm like solid. Like I'm an All-American. I'm the best.
You're faster than most humans could possibly imagine running.
Right. I have the school record at my D1 school, and I was like athlete a year in high school, right? And I made the trials, but guess what? Grant Fisher's a minute faster than
me. He's lapping you.
So it's so wild in that way. And Mark and I have talked about that in this, especially in the 10K. It's like,
oh yeah,
we've talked about this before. The iconic when Selinsky broke the U.S. record.
Oh yeah, was there too, and he got lapped.
He got lapped, but like Chris Selinsky ran 26:57 or whatever, and Scott still ran like 28:04.
Right. And, yeah, still a very good time.
Right, still a very good time there, and like. You're right. It's like, oh man, like this is nuts, but it's kind of part of the game, right? And it's like you still get that. That's what the cool part about the US style of building our team is it has a little bit of that American Idol concept to it, right? You can you go to the convention center, you wait in line, and then you go before, who is it? Simon Cowell,
Simon Cowell,
sorry, Simon Cowell, and Randy and
Paula Abdul
and you try out and you perform, right? And it's kind of got a little bit of that. So if you are that 27-35 guy and you're sneaking into the trials, you have that chance and that opportunity, and that's kind of the cool part of how we do it.
Yeah. Well, and that's what is a cool thing about the trials in general, right? It's like there's no trials for like some sports, like the basketball team. Like that's just chosen, right?
Right.
Like they just choose the 12 that they want to represent the US. But in our sport, in swimming, in a lot of these other sports, you have to compete for it. And it's honestly just an honor to make this race for a lot of us, for me and you. I know for me specifically, making it in 2016, that was really the peak of my running career in a lot of ways. Was like I made this is the pinnacle. Like I made this race. This is the closest level that I can get to being in the Olympics, which is the pinnacle of our sport, like you mentioned earlier. And so there's going to be people in this race that are just super happy to be there, and they're going to give it their all. But these aren't necessarily the names we're going to be talking about today.
Right. No, and I've been there too. I was there in February, and we had a couple episodes about it where I talked about the experience, and it is super special. You get to be in there. I was right, dude. I was on the start line. I was with Connor Mance. I was with Clayton Young, Galen Rupp, Paul Chalimo. Like they were all right there, dude. Yep.
All the same start line.
Same start line, and you get to be part of it, and your family's out there, and like you said, it's a big deal, and you kind of have that pinnacle. And for a lot of us that are in that sort of blue collar grassroots running world, the trials is kind of our holy grail. That is our goal. That is what we want to do. That, national championships, outdoors, things like that, back when me and you were going to like US road champs and stuff like that, like those where you get to dabble, stick your toe in the elite jacuzzi pool and be around all that stuff, because it's definitely special. Yeah, you were we went to outdoors in 2018, right? Me, you, and Will.
Oh, was that for
and Des
you're
Moines,
talking about
Iowa?
the 10K, right?
I was in the 5. You were in
the 5. Yeah,
yeah.
we were in the 10. Me, Will, and Raj were in the 10. And yeah, it was 2018. It was a weaker year, I will admit, because I don't think my time would have gotten in very many other years. But yeah, I was just a race I was super stoked to participate in.
Yeah, and
Derek
Derek was
last
there too.
Place. Yeah, Derek was there too, and Derek had he had a great year that year, and I didn't get last place in mine, so I was pretty happy with it.
Yeah, and so that's very, similar to a trials. We wouldn't have gone in probably in a trials year with those times, but
no.
we got to take like 5 or 6 of our friends to Des Moines, Iowa, and hang out for a week.
Yeah, we were there with the big guns in the same race. And
I raced Grant Fisher and Paul Chalimo that day.
Right? Yeah,
a young Grant Fisher.
Yeah, you guys all started at the same time.
Yeah, it was great.
I'm excited. You ready to get into this?
Yeah, you want to get into this? So we'll start with the 800. We'll start with the men. The men's 800. We got 3 rounds, so you have to survive the rounds. It's going to be a big deal in the 800. Positioning is everything. If you get boxed out, you're not where you need to be. You could risk not making it in. And in this event, I think Bryce Hoppel is going to be the clear favorite. He's been on fire. He's world indoor champ. He was USA outdoor champ the past couple years. He was 7th last year. And I have a hard time thinking of anyone else who's really close to where he's at. I mean, close in time, but like in his consistency and his execution, I think he's going to be, I think he's definitely going to be one to watch.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, I think the PRs aren't the only story here with Bryce Hoppel, right? I mean, it's not just that he has the fastest time in the field, and you got Isaiah Jewett and Brandon Miller down here at the 144 lows, which doesn't look like a lot, but it's not just that he's faster. It's that he wins these races. Like you said, he's the 2023 USA champ. And when you talk about the trials, and this is going to be probably a recurring subject when you go over the trials versus like, a Diamond League race or a race with a pacer, it's about winning. And that race is so much different than just going for a time and trying to run your fastest. Like that just doesn't happen as often in these championship style races.
Right. And with the 800, looking at the 800 specifically, and you're looking at a championship style race, it's like you said, it's not paced. We don't have the wave light. We don't have some guy in there taking you through 500 meters. You're going to have kind of your 2 styles. You have your people that go out hard, right? That want to go out
go
like
for it.
49 point. That's going to probably be your Isaiah Jewett and your Brandon Miller types, right? They have been ones that have gone to the front, kind of like I think of my era, Dwayne Solomon, who's a fellow Trojan with where Isaiah Jewett went. So, you have kind of that style. And then you had kind of, remember like the Nick Simmons style, we kind of the people that's kind of going to be more your Isaiah Harris, who comes in with the 5th fastest seed at 144 mid, 144.5. And the thing when I look at Bryce is he can do both. He can lead from the front and go hard from the gun, but also he can work his way through traffic as well. And a couple of cool collegiate storylines that I wanted to talk about was Sam Whitmarsh, Texas A&M, Athingmo, Donovan Brashear, Brandon Miller, who's on this list. They call it 800U for a reason, right? It's the Texas A&M is just a factory of middle distance runners. And he was actually he was a favorite to win the NCAA outdoor, but ended up being runner up. And he actually had a heart condition his freshman year that required some surgery. So he's kind of overcome some odds there.
Obstacles, yeah.
Yeah. And I watched a few interviews. He's just like a super grateful dude. He's just like, he played basketball and he did running to stay in shape for basketball. And
that's my dream, man. I wish I could have just done track as a secondary sport. I wanted to be a basketball player too.
Right. So, he's super humble and he's just like, I watched his heat at the NCAA champs, right? His round. And he was like, the look on his face when he crossed the line was just grateful. He was just so grateful that he made the final for the NCAAs, and he's really caught fire this year. So,
which is crazy too, that you can how can you be so grateful that you just made the final when you end up being the runner up? in the final. You know, it's like that should just be whatever. I did the semifinal. I made it through like I was supposed to. But yeah, just that's an appreciation that it's really hard to understand on a deeper level.
It is hard to understand, and that to me, you know, there's an appreciation to making it through the rounds at the Olympic trials, right? It's not a given. You actually like you have to like be in the right place, and you might get in a heat with somebody that wants to go wild. And you have to run a 144, 145 in the heat.
Right.
To move it on.
The 800, is probably the exception to that kind of that rule I was talking about, where a championship race, it's not always going to be a PR. Like there's going to be guys out here trying to PR in the 800 because you can still do that. 1500 and up, not so much. But yeah, with this race, you're going to have guys towards the back in those first heats, towards the back as far as seating goes. They're just going to try to rip it. And that's what makes the heat so fun and so interesting, is that, you know, you're still on the edge of your seat, like hoping that, you know, the favorites are going to make it through and be able to represent us, but they have to earn it. Really, they really have to earn it.
Right. They do. Everything is earned, you know, it's in the 800 and I mean, across all events, but like you can't fake it, man. You can't fake these rounds. You know, another cool storyline is Shane Cohen, who was the NCAA champ, who outkicked Sam Whitmarsh. He's from Virginia. He's actually a grad transfer, a D2 grad transfer from the University of Tampa, where he was a 148 guy. And so he's solid, right? Like that's solid. I believe he was an All-American at the D2 level. And 2023 was kind of up and down. I saw he was like running 153s, 154s. So it kind of seemed like maybe he was injured. I don't know for sure. But then he transfers to UVA, University of Virginia. And so he ends up going on to win the NCAA championship outdoors, but he was third at the ACC champs. You know, he was third at the ACC champs. So he's really caught fire in like the last 3 weeks, you know?
Jeez. Right when you want to.
Right when you want to. So he could be someone to look out for too as well. And he has the way he won the NCAA champs is he was in last place with 100 meters to go and just ripped that last 100 meters to outlean Sam Whitmarsh, who we just talked about at the line. So he's got some of I don't know, I think it was 1972 or 1976 Dave Waddle that in the Olympics. I can't remember if it was 72 or 76, but he basically did that. He went in the back and ended up winning. So he's another one to look out for, I think, in terms of, you know, I don't even know if you want to call him a long shot with 144, but you know, you know,
well, just because of the college. Is it because he's a college runner? Him and Sam Whitmarsh. I mean, I know that, you know, we're used to seeing, you know, a couple college kids sneak in here, and we're going to talk about a few more in some other events too. But I mean, how does that play in for you? I guess from your perspective, like, do you feel like they can compete at this level? I mean, especially when you're looking at them having the 4th and the 7th best times going into the meet.
That's a good question. And I think there's two ways to look at it. There's two schools of thought, I think, where people, you know, assess collegiate athletes performing at the Olympic trials. Is one school of thought is maybe they've been racing. You know, they might be a little over raced because they've been racing indoor. They have conference. They have to do these like early season meets like Brian Clay and they have to do, you know, a regional meet and the whole NCAA season could be a little taxing because they're traveling and you're still going to school. So it might be a little tiring. Another way to think about it is that they're sharp, right? They have to race, right? You have to have a season. You have to compete to make it through the rounds for the championship side of things. So, you know, some of these pros haven't really raced a whole lot this year. Some of them opened up at Prefontaine, and which is in late May. Where, you know, so there's two. I tend to think that maybe some of these collegiate athletes are going to be on the sharper side of things. And it's going to be hard for some of these collegiate athletes to actually train for the Olympics specifically. Like someone like Grant Fisher, maybe someone like Grant Fisher can probably plan out his training a little bit far in advance, right? For, okay, we're gonna, but like, you know, you're Shane Cohen, you're a D2 transfer. You're probably like, you're training for the NCAA championships, right? That's going to be your goal. And we're going to extend that out. So I think of it as the second of those two options, is that I think especially for middle distance runners, I think it's going to keep you sharp. I think when you get into the 5 and the 10, especially for, you know, some of these, faster 5 and 10 runners, you could start to see a little fatigue come into late June after having to run 5 and 10Ks, because you have to run you have to run a 10K at regionals now. So
right.
Memorial Day weekend or whatever it is, you have to go and slog through a 10K to make it to the next round of 10K.
Yeah.
Right. So
I don't know how other kids do it, but whenever I ran a 10K in track, I was out for like 3 days. Like my legs just did not work properly. I'm guessing they have much better recovery systems. A lot of these elite runners do than I did back in my day. But man, yeah, that's just a slog.
Yeah, it is a slog. They've been doing their double threshold, and they have their super shoes, and they probably have all
the super shoes. Yeah.
Theraguns, and we didn't have the recovery sleeves, right? The Normatec and all that. So that has improved.
Just Asics Japan Thunder spikes and a dream. That was all we had back then.
That was it. maybe a Gatorade in the airport.
Yes, yeah, but not for free, for sure.
But not for free, full retail. And then we have Clayton Murphy, right?
Yeah,
his resume is second to few, right? He's multiple time trials champion. He's bronze medalist 2016. Yeah. Right? He's run 142. He's been in that like elite world tier, right? And the guy just has this knack of making teams. When I look at what he's done in 2024, he raced twice in China, then he ran a 145 twice. He just hasn't raced a ton. And, the guy is a veteran. He's savvy. He knows how to make it through the rounds. I've been watching some Clayton Murphy tape. His positioning he's good instinct. He's got all those things. It's just kind of like, where do we land, right? Where do the cards fall for Clayton Murphy? And, if things align well, he could sneak on a team, but I just think the talent is so good this year. I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be tough.
Yeah, Clayton Murphy, he seems like a wild card. He's one runner that at least I know a little bit about, and me and Mark have talked about him, and we are both agree that Clayton Murphy seems to run well when other people don't run well.
Right.
He's one of the best runners at taking advantage of other people showing weakness.
Yeah.
And so if any of these top guys, don't bring their A game during the final, I feel like Clayton Murphy, he still has a really good chance of making the final, even if he's a little lower seed than we're used to seeing him. I think that he's just good at responding to what the field is doing. And so if it's there for him, I could see him sneaking in there. But, like you said, I don't think anyone's calling him the favorite anymore, even though he was third place last year at USATF champs.
Yeah. Yeah, he was. So there's an influx, of collegiates this year. And, I look at a guy like Brandon Miller, who's just another year stronger, he's only 22, 23 years old. So he's a year stronger. So yeah, I think the 800 is going to be a very, very good race to watch.
Yeah, this should be very exciting. This is going to be one of those races where I feel like it comes down to the final stretch and you're not sure who's going to make the team.
Yeah, it could be just like a bunch sprint where, somebody leads for like 700 meters and then it's swinging on to lane 5.
Yeah. Who is your 3? Who are you predicting?
Who am I predicting? I like Bryce Hoppel.
Sure.
I think Bryce Hoppel is the favorite to win it. And I'm going to go with Isaiah Harris. Okay. I think he's due. He made the world team in indoor, and he was a second last year at this event. So he does have some experience. He was also on the Brooks B set the world record in the DMR this year.
No, that's pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I wish the DMR was an Olympic event. That would be so fun.
Right. And then I'm gonna go with Sam Whitmarsh. I'm gonna go with Sam Whitmarsh, the collegiate, as my pick. So a little bit. I do like Isaiah Jewett. I'm a Trojan. Like, I grew up in SoCal. My mom went to USC, and so it was really hard to look at this list. I also like Brandon Miller. I think Brandon Miller he's young. He's up and coming. There's a bright future for Brandon Miller. I'm a big Brandon Miller fan. But yeah, I'm gonna go Hoppel, Harris, and Whitmarsh for the 8. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Not getting that NCAA championship, but getting that Olympic bid. That I'd say that's a pretty good season all in all.
Yeah. Moving on to the women. The outlook is it's pretty wide open. The favorite from last year, I guess I should say the top seed from last year is the Thing Mo, but she hasn't raced in 2024. Her last race was in the Prefontaine in September of 23. She is an Olympic champion. She's a world champion. And one thing I could not find much information on what she's been up to in terms of her training or racing. I watched Budapest from last year in 23, where she placed third in 156, and she was quoted saying, "I've been going through a lot of transition in the past few months." So again, that was after World Championships in Budapest last September, I think. She's such a talent, you know what I mean? She's a she's a gold medalist, and her style of racing looks so effortless, right? So a 154 for her, like you look at the other runners and they're like maxed out redlining, and she just looks so effortless. The talent is obviously there, right?
Yeah.
And she is declared for the event. So I'm very curious to see. I hope she makes the team. I hope she's, she's been training well, hope she's healthy, but I'm not sure. I'm not really sure what to make of where a Thing Mo is as right now.
Yeah, it is very concerning. I think that everyone who knows anything about track would, be concerned that a Thing Mo hasn't raced this whole season, that, even last year that she's been going through stuff. And we know that if she was just doing her thing, this would just be a clear-cut number one. Like, she would definitely win this race. But now it's like, man, I don't know if she's even going to make it through the rounds. It's really hard. I think the one saving grace for her is that, like you said before, this is a pretty wide open 800-meter field. There's a lot of, top-level talent, obviously, in Raven Rogers and Nia Akins. Just a lot of good runners here that have made the team before, but they haven't had the best season in 2024.
Right.
And so that is where maybe you could say that a Thing Mo could get it together for this. But if she hasn't even been able to get in one warm-up race before this, it makes you think that, like, she's just trying to eke out every possible day to, like, get ready for it.
Yeah.
Which, in my experience, I when not that I can say anything, from a professional runner perspective, but it's so hard to just open up and go right into championship level racing.
Right.
Like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it adds up. Maybe because she is the best, maybe she can, but what do we have to go off of?
We don't. And usually, like, because like the Sydney McLaughlin group, right? Like they'll open up with maybe a relay or a 200 or a open anything. 4, right? Like Sydney's been doing 200 open 200s and 400s, right? Like, some cool like pen relays, like USA versus the world. That's this kind of stuff you'll see from them. And we haven't seen the Thing Mo do any of those. So,
right. Is there an expectation at the top where you can't race unless you're in top shape?
I wonder. I don't know, man. Because Sydney doesn't miss a beat. She doesn't win
she's always in top shape, though.
So that's what I'm saying. Is that proves your point. Like,
yeah,
like she is always prepared and composed. So maybe there is something about that. I don't know.
Yeah, I really hope she can, because watching her run, you cannot help but be impressed.
Yeah,
and, like, just in awe of her ability. And for us to not be able to get that this year would be a shame. And if she's going through stuff, I hope she's doing well. But as a track fan, like, we're all gonna lose out if she can't run at her best.
Yeah. So without that, that's an interesting development there. The second fastest time, Raven Rogers, her entry time is 1:57. However, she hasn't. That was last year where she ran that. I believe that was at. Yeah, she got 4th place at World Championships last year in 2023. So she had actually a great season last year. And at the LA Grand Prix, she ran 2:06. She's run 2:02 this season. And when I kind of looked at her seasons kind of in the lead up, she's run 2:02 this season. And in the lead up to her prior seasons where she's made the teams, she's been in that 159 to 2 flat realm, and she goes and runs like a 157 at the trials and then makes the Olympics or whatever, makes it, so she's a little bit off that trajectory going into this trials, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she can't make the team.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen her make the team multiple times now, so I don't think we need to be too concerned with her. Yeah, like you said, we haven't seen her run faster than 2:02 this season, but maybe that's just because she's peaking at the right time.
Right. That's probably it. Yeah, I agree. And then Addison Wiley's actually a pretty cool storyline. She's an NAI, a 20-year-old NAI, super talented young lady out of Indiana. She's really had a meteoric rise the past couple years. She's run 4:02 in the 15, but hasn't run an outdoor 800 yet this season, which, like you're saying about Raven, might not be a huge deal because the fitness is there, obviously, with that 4:02. But I think she was also second at the USA at indoors this year too, a USA indoors. So her entry time of 157 is from September of last year. She ran that in Switzerland. So, she's an up and comer for sure. Like, she's definitely a rising star.
Yeah, I'm not a huge, I don't know about you. Are you a huge fan of like not running the race that you're entered in to run like that whole year? Like, do you feel like you can get away with that? Like, do you feel like a 1500 can prepare you for an 800?
I think in combination, right? In like, okay, I have an 800 and then I also do a 1500. I think they work together, but in exclusive, like, oh, I'm not going to do the 800 and do the 1500 instead. Yeah, I don't know. I think she's entered in the 15 as well. Is she entered in the 15? Maybe she's not. Oh, she is. She's entered in the 15.
Yeah, no, she's third. Yeah, third seed, 359.
So, and with some of these doubles too, I want to see how it shakes out. I want to see like who actually shows up, right? I'm not saying anyone's not going to show up, because if they're declared, they're going to show up. But because we have like some guys in the 15 and the
5K
and the 5K, actually women too, and the 5 and 10. So, and then Nia Akins, actually, I'm pretty high on.
I mentioned her, but yeah, she might be the biggest lock we have so far.
I consider her the favorite going in. She was at pre-classic. She ran 157 and she was the first American. She got 4th place. And just last week at the Portland Track Festival, she ran 158 first place. At last year at USA Outdoors, she was first place, outkicked Raven Rogers for the title. So, she's demonstrated prior success, and it has also had very recent success
right
this spring. So she's sharp. She's performing well at the Prefontaine Classic is essentially like a kind of a simulated Olympic final. And and Portland Track Festival is going to be the best domestic athletes usually at the time that are going. So I'm really high on Nia Akins. I think she's really coming to form right now, and I kind of consider her the favorite right now.
Yeah, no, nothing more needs to be said there. Yeah, I think all of us should just expect to see her out there on the final and see her at least close to first place, maybe win the thing.
Yeah, Sage Herta Klecker, she's entered in the 15 as well. Yeah, she's firing on all cylinders right now too. She was the top American at the UCLA Grand Prix, where she ran 158. She was the second American behind Nia Akins, who we just talked about, at Prefontaine, and those were back-to-back weekends. She ran 158 twice in good solid competition. So she is former NCAA champ as well out of Colorado. So she's had a lot of high quality coaching, going from Colorado to the on athletics club with Coach Ritzenheim. So I expect her to do well as well.
Yeah, no, I think she's got a good shot. I'm gonna be partial to any of these athletes that have done really well the last few weeks. Like any that had a good time at any that did well at Portland Track Festival. Those are gonna be ones I'm definitely on the lookout for.
Yeah, and she's one of them. And then we have a couple of collegiates. Michaela Rose from LSU. She was NCAA outdoor champ in 2023, and she was recently a runner-up a couple weeks ago. And then we also have Julia Whitaker from Stanford, was a seed time of 159. She was an NCAA outdoor champ couple weeks ago this year, and then a NCAA indoor champ in March or whenever that was. So a couple of talented young ladies coming in. And looking at Juliet Whitaker, she actually has a ton of wins this season. Her profile is full of like ones. So, she's a good racer. She's a good racer, and maybe her seed time isn't the absolute fastest, but she's proven that she knows where she knows where to be when it counts. And then we're kind of getting to some veterans here. We have Aji Wilson, who is
still in it.
Yeah, she's still in it. She's still running fast. She is her resume, like I was talking about with Clayton Murphy, her resume is very good. She was an outdoor bronze medalist twice. She was an indoor world champion. She has 8 U.S. indoor championships and 4 outdoor championships. So extremely, extremely accomplished, decorated. I'm sure she's going to be in the Hall of Fame, right? Like, she is a first ballot Hall of Famer for track and field.
Yeah. Made the team in 2021 or 2020 Olympics, if you will. And she's older now, but she's going to give it another shot. Might as well, right?
Yep. And her entry time is 2 flat, which I think is from last season. And she comes in with a 2:02 out of Penn relays in April. So, like we kind of talked about with Raven Rogers, she might not need a whole lot to tune up for these events, being such a veteran. And a couple other notable ones. Allie Wilson was a U.S. indoor champ. She's been consistently 2 flat to 2:02 all season. And the great Kate Grace, another veteran, she was 8th. She was 8th in Rio in 2016, and she is also a mother. And so shout out to parents. Shout out to the parents who are still out there chasing their track and field dreams. So the women's race is pretty wide open here.
Yeah, this should be a fun one. And obviously the big story is going to be a thing, Mo. It's probably going to take over most of the spotlight.
Yes.
But I think, you got to lock in Nia Akins. I'm going to give it to Raven Rogers. And then a thing, Mo, if she can muster, I don't believe. So I think, we're going to get a new face in here for sure.
You think it's a new face?
I think it's going to be a new face.
Yeah, I like your top 2. But those are going to be mine too. Top 2 of Nia Akins and Raven Rogers. I really, I watching the tape. Juliet Whitaker, Stanford.
All right.
I think she could surprise some people here.
It's just the 159. You look back at the 2023 championships or even the 2021 800. It was 156 and then 157 and 158. So I don't know. I feel like you have to at least run 158.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
If she could get a season best there, it could happen.
Yeah, and I do think though, if a thing Mo is healthy, I think she's talented enough to make it through, and potentially.
I just don't think she's healthy.
Yeah. That's probably true. Okay, so heading on to the men's 15.
Yeah, 800's down, but man, we're gonna have to blow through the rest of these if we want to get to bed by midnight, huh?
Yes, we're gonna keep it moving here. So the men's 1500 meters. We've talked about this event. We've talked about these players a lot on this show. We're definitely fans of these runners for sure. Yard Nagoose, Cole Hawker at the top of the list. I think those are the top 2 clear favorites.
Yeah.
Yard Nagoose, Wanamaker Mile, he's run 3:47. He ran 3:47 at the Wanamaker Mile. Indoor, he ran 3:46 at the pre-classic. He was 3rd at the Olympic trials in 21. He hasn't really lost to U.S. competition recently. And he hasn't
lost to very many people in general recently.
Yeah, he hasn't really lost to very many people in general. I think with Yard and Cole, I honestly feel like Yard, looking at how well he competed against Jakob and Josh Kerr at Yard might almost be better suited for the Olympics than he is to trials.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Cole Hawker might be the favorite for the trials, but like Yard might perform better than than
Right,
Hawker
like
at the Olympics.
Cole does not have as much of a chance of podiuming as Naguse. Like, I think Naguse is probably the favorite right now to get the bronze
Yeah.
behind Kerr and Ingebrigtsen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that, I don't think anyone's really giving Hawker that chance, which I think for good reason. I think Naguse is just, he's used to racing those guys, and he's used to being right up there with them.
Yes, I do. I agree. So I think Cole has a good shot to win this thing. Hawker he's a complete runner. He doesn't really have a whole lot of chinks in his armor, right? He's run a 145 800. He's run 330 for the 15. He's run 1258 for the 5K. And he also did US Cross, right? He also did US Cross champs,
which I always appreciate. I love a good cross country throw in there.
Yeah. We raced him in 2022 in Golden Gate Park, where he was at club. He was at Club Med. So like,
if you want to call it that, yeah.
Yeah. So we were running at the same time as him.
Yes. Yeah. We all started together.
So I'm a fan of Cole, and I think he has long shot medal potential. I think
long shot for sure.
Long shot, but he got 6th place in the Olympics last time he went. So and we have to remember his rise to fame when he was a freshman in college at Oregon, right?
Yeah, this is back in 2021, right?
Back in 2021.
Yeah.
And so right now he's going to be at the age of a senior in college. And you know how Joe Rubio thinks when you start your post-collegiate career, you're a freshman again, right?
Right. Yeah.
So he's now a senior.
Yeah. Totally different outlook now. Obviously a little different path than the normal one, but
right.
No, he's legit. Yeah, these two guys are pretty much locks in my opinion.
Yeah, I think they're locks.
I'm sure for you too.
Yep. Cooper Tier, been watching some Cooper Tier tape. I'm jumping on the Cooper Tier bandwagon. He won, I want to say he won the US champs in 2022 or 2022.
Yeah, I think you're right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he won 2022. And a couple weeks ago, or at the Portland Track Fest, he won the 1500 meters in super messy fashion. He was like swimming through bodies. He was like swimming through bodies in the last 50 to win. And, I was a little worried about his speed, but he could be a contender here. He's also in the 5K. He could also, do some damage in the 5K. So Cooper and Cole are both training together in Virginia, and they got a good vibe going. So, I've gained more confidence in Cooper Tier over the past couple weeks. And Colin Solomon, collegiate. I want to say he's a second year in college at Northern Arizona. I was coaching high school when he was in high school, so I got to see him. Race quite a bit, and he was super talented in high school, and he's super talented now.
Yeah.
And he's super successful.
Yeah, obviously a great time, and I think he is definitely part of the future. But what do you see his chances as right now? Like, I don't feel like he has a very good shot.
He's run these fast times at like Brian Clay and like Occidental when these like they're paced and they're these groomed races. But you're talking about like being able to kick off a fast pace or kick off a slow pace, and that positioning and getting boxed out, and it's different, dude. The trials level is different than even a round in the NCAAs, right?
Well, and he didn't even win NCAAs this year with this great seed time that he has. He got 4th place, so it's like it's just a different race. I think his time will come, I think, but it's just not yet.
No, his time will come. He's kind of like how I'm thinking of Brandon Miller in the 8. He's definitely a rising star, and I think he's not, he's going to get some good experience, having to go through the rounds at the Olympic trials, but it's really different at the elite level.
Eric Holt.
Yes.
We talk about him for a minute, because even I've heard of Eric Holt, and I think because he speaks so much to that underdog story, right?
Yeah. So he's unsponsored. He's out there on the East Coast at the Empire Track Club. He attended Binghamton University in New York, which is it's a D1 school, but it's a mid-major, and he's living with his parents. I can't remember if it was Sidious or Let's Run. He did an interview, and he gave this like emotional response to his training and his dedication, his commitment to the sport. And he's he works jobs, and I think he said he was working, in a hospital or something. I don't know exactly what he was doing, but when he goes out to, he said this in the interview. He said when he goes out to eat, his girlfriend pays for everything. He's living on it with his parents, and he was pretty grateful about it too. He's like, yeah, my dad's getting a little bit older, but it's like kind of nice because we get to spend some time together. So kind of a wholesome story there. So he's competitive. Like he's competitive. Like he's got a good kick. He can lead. He can close. He's got all the tools of a solid 1,500-meter runner. But again, that's a great storyline to follow. I think it's he didn't come from a big fancy school. He doesn't have a big fancy contract. He's chasing his dream, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're watching the 1,500 and you want to root for an underdog, this is your guy right here. This is the perennial underdog story.
Yeah. This is the perennial underdog. And then we have the another cool storyline we have is the three dudes from Washington, Joe Wascom, Nathan Green, and Luke Hauser, who've all won NCAA titles in various capacities. Joe, most recently, winning NCAA's this year, and I think did he win outdoors last year too?
I'd have to look it up.
No, was it Nathan?
Oh no, I think that was Nathan Green won last year. I think. Did he?
Or did he win indoor? Nope. Luke Hauser won indoor. So
okay, yeah.
I think you're right. I think Nathan Green won last year.
Yeah.
Anyways,
that's at least what World Athletics says.
Yes. Oh yeah, we're getting a lot of our information from World Athletics. So if there's like a deep cut result that we're missing, if they're like, would they? If they didn't race this year, we said they didn't race this year, but they ran, some tri meet in Fresno. Like, let me know. It wasn't on the World Athletics site.
Yeah, CJ Albertson's times won't show up on here because all his races are in Fresno.
Yeah. So there maybe the super deep cut races aren't hitting the World Athletic website. So yeah, that's going to be cool. That's been fun watching them develop. Then you got your veteran. You got 2016 gold medalist Matthew Centrowitz.
Matt.
He's already announced that this is going to be his final season, regardless if he makes the Olympics or not. This is going to be his final season. He will be retiring after the Olympics or after the trials, whatever. So
the trials, yeah.
So, Centro is he's in his at the kind of sunset side of his career, towards the end of it here. He's very savvy. It's really, is he going to be able to make an impact? Oh, we didn't even really talk about Hobbs Kessler yet either. But
yeah, he's down there in the mile entries.
Yeah, he's down there in the mile entries. But Centro, I think he's going to be happy to make. It's going to be, maybe he's not going to be happy, but I think making the final would be a big accomplishment for him.
Yeah. I think he wants to go as far as he can. And
right.
and I think that's a great accomplishment at this stage. You're giving the torch to Goose and Hawker, and leaving the 1,500 and really a good spot for America, honestly, all things considered. Hard to match a gold medal in 2016, but I think they at least give him a shot to get a medal on the world stage.
Absolutely, and I think that's a good point you brought up. I think Matt Centrowitz left American middle distance running better than he found it.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? Or is leaving it. Like we are a better nation of runners. Maybe you don't have the slew of dudes from UW without the inspiration of Matt Centrowitz, right? Like, I think he has brought, he has been the inspiration, the impetus for this resurgence in middle distance running that we've seen over the past couple of years from guys like Goose, Hawker, the dudes from UW, Cooper Tier, all these guys, right? Because we were in a little bit of a lull for a while in middle distance running, with pretty much Matt Centro propping it up for us.
Yeah.
So, I thank you, Matt, for all you've done.
Yes.
I've been a big fan following your career, so it's been it's been great, and yeah, good luck. Hobbs Kessler.
Gotta mention him.
We got to talk about him. He's going to be, he's up there. He's going to be kind of in that Cooper Tier category for me, and Eric Holt kind of in that, like Hobbs Kessler could potentially make the Olympics. He's talented. He's been training with Bryce Hoppel and he does big boy training. He does tempos. He does interval training. He does long runs. So Hobbs, I think, is definitely a contender. He's going to be kind of in that like short list of sort of like that top 5. And Davis Bove.
Yes.
Cal Poly.
Let's get a little Cal Poly shout out right now.
Heck yes. He's Cal Poly, transfer from LSU, Big West Conference champion.
Yeah, you called that race, didn't you?
I called that race. He was super smooth, dude, so controlled. And he looked really good in the 5K as well. So, he comes in with a 337 with the PR school record.
Fresh off the 337 too. He just ran that.
Fresh off a 337. It's been so fun following this guy, like, through the rounds, and then all these races postseason. I didn't even I don't know, when I was coming up, we didn't really have postseason races like this.
No. Oh yeah, no, I was done for the summer after regionals and nationals. That was it.
It's like, there's all these elite races. There's Portland, there's these Grand Prix, there's these all these meets all over the country, and it's like, yeah, shout out. But yeah, congrats, Davis. You're gonna make us proud. Looking forward to following that race for sure.
Yeah. I'll give a little shout out to Craig Engels too, who has been training in San Luis Obispo.
Oh yeah.
I'll always give a little shout out to any San Luis Obispo ties. Yes,
the former Ole Miss standout, training under Coach Van Oy here in San Luis Obispo. Yeah, he's got a fast time of 3:52, and it'd be really cool to see him mixing it up there in the final.
Yeah, he's got the speed, so yeah, he can make it fun.
Yeah, he can definitely make it fun. All right, going on to the women's. I feel like when we've talked about, the women's 800 being kind of wide open, I think whatever the opposite of wide open is,
slammed shut.
It's slammed shut. I think.
Yeah, locked, seal it, right in the stone.
You still got to, and the reason why these athletes are the way they are is because they approach it. They have a day one mentality, right? Okay, I got the prelim. I got to make it through the prelim. Okay, then I got the semi. Then I got the final. Then I got the 5K, right? So they have a day one mentality, so they're not thinking of themselves as a lock, right? Because you got to have that tunnel vision. But
yeah, go into it as if it's your last every time.
But as people talking on the internet about them, you can I see some pretty really good locks here. Ellie St. Pierre is having a phenomenal season. She recently had a child within the last year.
Mom energy.
She got that mom energy. So, she was a world indoor champion in the 3K. She recently ran 2:01 in the 800, and she was third in the 15 at pre-classic, where she ran her 3:56. She was the first American. So she's firing all cylinders right now. She is locked in, and she just she runs with authority. She ran her race at World Indoors was so well executed. She was in 4th place the whole time. She did not mess around. She stayed out of trouble, and people in the front were kind of rubbing shoulders, and she just locked in. And then we have Elise Cranny, who also is firing on all cylinders right now. She recently ran 14:46 at the Portland Track Festival. And she was going back and forth with Safan Hassan too, who is a formal
small feat there.
Yeah. Gold medalist. I think she's multiple gold medalists in the Olympics.
I think multiple within the same Olympics. Yeah.
Multiple within the same Olympics. So I think Elise Cranny is looking really strong in the 15 and probably more so the 5K, to be honest. I think that's probably going to be her better event, but she's entered in both. And with how well she's running, I could see her having to make a tough decision or having the best decision ever to do both.
Yeah, she just seems like she's really sharp. She's been racing well this whole season. She's been on fire. I think that it would be shocking to not see her make the team on maybe not both, but maybe both, honestly.
Right. So then we have Addison Wiley, who we talked about in the 800 NAIA standout. So, she's definitely an up and comer. And Sinclair Johnson, to me, is an interesting conversation point. She's super talented. And I believe, did she make the team? She hasn't made a team recently.
She was 4th in 2023. She was right there.
Right there. She ran 4 flat at pre, which is very solid. She's ran 159, which puts her in kind of that elite status for women. I think, that execution, that performance, that swinging wide, and that, that's what I would really like to that's probably what she's going to need to focus on to make it through, to make the team.
Yeah, I think she has the tools to do it. I mean, I think I've been a fan of watching her race, and I think she's definitely got what it takes. And she's just right there on the cusp, it seems, just every time.
Right.
So I think this could be her breakout.
It could be. Nikki Hiltz has had a phenomenal season as well. They ran 3:59 at pre-classic and was also a silver medalist indoor. And they have been super consistent. And again, like I said about Ellie, Nikki runs with a lot of authority too.
From what I remember, was it a little bit of a surprise that they won the 2023, or was that, I guess, was that an upset of any sort?
To be honest with you, I don't know if that was. I think people knew. I think people had a lot of faith in Nikki Hiltz.
Yeah, so I guess should we expect Nikki to be on this team again?
I mean, I'm gonna pick Nikki. Spoiler alert, they are in my top 3 to make the team. So I just been following Nikki's performances this year, and we've talked about it on this podcast when we were talking about indoor and previewing indoor. So yeah, I'm high on Nikki Hiltz this season, and also Emily. Is it Emily McKay or Emily Mackay?
Don't ask me. The World Athletics doesn't pronounce it for me.
No. She is a very strong runner as well. She's run 157. She's also a Binghamton alum, like Eric Holt. So she's a mid-major represent. Shout out. She's making she's a strong candidate. She's this. I think the top end with Ellie and Elise, I think they're solid locks. But Nikki and Emily and Sinclair, that third spot is gonna be highly contested.
It is, but yeah, I think Nikki, you just give Nikki the edge because of what you've seen her do already, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm more biased towards what I've seen and the racing and the following of these athletes, right? Nikki
that's
also
way more important than the times themselves,
right?
Like, and that's what we were saying before. It's like you have no wave light. All of these women have run 3:59, but their 3:59s are of different sorts. And for Nikki, I just feel like they know how to game up.
Right, exactly. And then coming, looking at the rest of it's a stacked field, right? It's the best middle distance runners in the nation. We got Corey McGee, who's a phenomenal athlete. She made the Olympics in 2021 and was
third last year, right?
Third last year. So, she's definitely in the conversation with Heather McLean. Heather McLean is another veteran, but they're both veteran athletes who've had a lot of success along with Josette Andrews. So, it's you only can take 3, right? We can only take 3, yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I think this boils down to there's a lot of fun names to watch here in this race, and it's going to be really fun to watch them through the heats, right?
That's a good way to put it. There's a lot of fun names in this event. This one's like celebrity packed.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, though, it's going to be 3 of them that are probably going to just run away with it in the last 400 meters.
Yes. With that said, I'm going to go St. Pierre, Elise Cranny, and Nikki Hiltz.
Yeah, I'd love to see Sinclair Johnson sneak in there, but yeah. I think you're right. I think that's the top 3 for me too.
But Sinclair, Emily McKay, absolutely right there, right? Like
absolutely.
They could do it. They we could be eating our words here, and they could definitely do it. But it's fun to make predictions.
I like that Sinclair ran a 159 at Portland just a few weeks ago. She's gearing up for that last lap with that race.
Right. Okay, on to the steeplechase for the men. That we have very familiar names at the top of the list here. We have Hillary Bohr, Anthony Rotich, Kenneth Rooks and Mason Furlick. I really like Hillary Bohr. He's a veteran. He's done it before. He was on the team that went to Tokyo in 2021. Anthony Rotich's time is from last year. So like we talked about with several of these athletes, some of their entry times, some of their have been from last season. He's run 8:23 this season. Kenneth Rooks is our returning champion.
Yeah, and surprise champion at
surprise champion. And Mason Furlick, who I believe in 2021 was like unsponsored or just got barely sponsored. He had a storyline, and
great rags to riches story.
Great rags to riches story. And you know, Wilkinson is showing good form. I always like to see when the steeplechasers are running fast 15s. That's always a good sign. And then Bernard Coutier, maybe not quite where he wants to be right now in terms of his fitness, but you know, he was on the team last year. He was on the team in 2023 and in 21. So really, I don't know that he has a ton to worry about. And then we have Parker Stokes, who was the NCAA champ, which is, when I look at the steeplechase, you're getting a lot of reps, right? You're getting a lot of reps. You're getting a lot of practice with the steeple and the barriers. So that's going to, you know, he could be he could be a dark horse in this event. And then Evan Yeager.
Yes. Somehow going to be the biggest story, despite, I mean, this is like a Matthew Centrowitz thing, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, you know, you gotta respect the legends of old.
So for this event, I think it's, I don't know. I kind of see this event, looking at the history, as being pretty straightforward. Like if you look at the top seeds in the top 6, you know, you have some familiar faces of Hillary Bohr, Bernard Coutier, and Mason Furlick, right? So I think, you know, I think, you know, if you're gonna make me choose, I like Hillary Bohr, Kenneth Rooks, and Bernard Coutier for this year's team.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think that, you know, it sucks that for Rodich, you know, we can't really give him the nod because, I mean, obviously he has almost the fastest time in the whole field, but his 2024 has not looked very good yet.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's just goes back to I just want to pick the guys that I know are racing well right now.
Right.
And yeah, that does come down to Hillary Bohr. It does come down to Kenneth Rooks. And yeah, I think I'll go with Mason Furlick as the third.
Yeah.
He's just super consistent. He's always right there.
Yes, he's always right there. So yeah, that's another good one too. And to be honest with you, like with, you know, since we are in a post-peak Evan Yeager era, right? The entries here are pretty close together. We're looking at our top 6 men all within 4 seconds of each other. So, you know, it could go either way. You know, you could see some upsets here. Going on to the women, this is a new era of women's steeplechasing. We have no Emma Coburn and no Courtney Frericks this year, so it's a little bit of a changing of the guard in this event. And you know, the seed times here from 1 to 5 really are just like separate, like from 9:12 with Chrissy Gear to 5th place, Gabrielle Jennings, 9:18. That's a pretty tight spread.
Yeah. I will say, yeah, because even though Kristen Gear has the fastest seed time for these 2 through 5 seeds that you're mentioning here, all of these women have ran faster than what Chrissy Gear ran at pre. She only ran 9:24, and all these other girls have ran faster than that since then.
Yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah, so
that makes it pretty wide open in my book.
Yeah,
if these other girls are running faster.
That's a good point. That's a great observation. Yeah, so it's pretty wide open now that you say that. So I will still, like, because Gear is, you know, a veteran at this point. I think she's still pretty young, actually. So maybe the veterans a little bit of a liberty there, but she did win last year, and she has experience, right? But maybe not
championship difference.
Yeah, the championship difference, but maybe not 100% lock. I like where you're thinking though, and maybe it's not 100% lock.
Anything can happen in a steeplechase. That's the beauty of it, right?
I also like Ali Ostrander. I watched a little bit of her
one. Very
She's sneaky. I watched a little bit of her vlog about Portland Track Festival. It was, you know, she's got a pretty good vlog on YouTube. So
did you subscribe?
I didn't subscribe. I didn't. I need to. I will subscribe. It just popped up. Well, because it's like I was watching Portland Track Fest, right? And it's like the next suggestion was her vlog.
You jumped down the YouTube rabbit hole.
It's such a rabbit, dude. The Portland Track Fest rabbit hole with all, dude. It's like the hot window, and it's like a different high school the next day, and it was.
Oh, what a trip! But you think she has? You think she has an outside chance? Actually,
I think she has an outside chance. I think she has. She's been looking strong, and she's been running with a lot of positivity.
I think she's gonna have to get under 9:20. She's gonna have to PR by quite a bit, I think, to get this win.
Maybe it goes out slow,
or not even to win, just get top three.
Top three. Since you had some really good insight on the women's steeple, what's your top three?
Ooh, all right. I'm gonna go with Courtney Wayment, number 1, ran 9:14, and that was at pre. And then I will go Gabrielle Jennings, and then I'm gonna go Chrissy Gear at number 3.
I like it. That's a good.
Just mixing it up a little bit. You know,
that's a good team. That's a good team. Heading on down to the men's 5K. This is gonna be a good race, dude.
This is gonna be fun.
The gloves are off. The gloves are off. We have some interesting dynamics here because we do have people that are entered that are doubling, like Cooper Tier, Cole Hawker, and Yard Nagoose. So people that are doubling in the 15 and the 5K for the guys. The men are the 21st, 22nd, and 24th for the 1500. So 24th is the final for the 1500. And then the first round of the 5K is the 27th.
27th,
so
yeah.
we're going to have 3 days recovery.
A lot of racing.
That's a lot of racing. I wonder, though, like, when you're at that level, when you're Nico Young, when you're Cole Hawker, and you're in a preliminary 5K, that's like, maybe they're running 68s to 70s.
Yeah.
Is that like active recovery for you? And you just have to kick, you know what I mean? Like,
that's a good point.
Like, I was thinking about this. I'm like, oh man, how are they going to do 5 races in 10 days? And I was just thinking, like, for the round, it's really the last K where they're winding it up, the last 3 minutes.
Yeah. It's almost like you're only giving your hardest for like a K.
Right. Granted, it's very hard.
It's very hard
for that 1K, but is it like, do you look at it? Could you like convince yourself that, oh, this is like basically like a threshold with a kicker?
I feel like you have to, which is just such a foreign concept for even me, because I can't not give 100% in a race. Like it's just not in my DNA. I just don't know how.
Yeah.
Maybe I can double on one day, but then like there's no way I could come back 2 days later and do it again. Like those days are far behind me too. Like those high school double days, no, I can't do that. So for them to be able to run at a championship level against some of the best in the world, like this many times, it's ridiculous.
It is. That's why I kind of brought it up, because it's like you have to convince yourself, right?
Yeah. Mind over matter.
Mind over matter. So, all right. So we have Grant Fisher, Cooper Tier, Nico Young, Cole Hawker, Yard Nagu, Sean McGorty, Abdi Noor, Morgan, Beetle Scum, Grand Blanks. Then we get into some guys, and then we got Parker Wolf, who's the NCAA champ, and then Woody Kincaid with a 13-15. I think, I think Grant is the favorite for this. He's been super consistent, but like, I really
the problem is that we've seen Grant not race well at these races before.
Yeah.
Yeah, like true. Last year in the 5K and the 10K. I mean, granted, he did have an injury, I think, going into it, and it prevented him from maybe racing to his fullest. But I know he took out those races, and he tried to win, but ended up coming short in both of them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of talented guys in here, but maybe he's learned a lot from his previous transgressions, and he'll come out and race the right race.
Yeah. And this is, let me see, because he's doing the 5-10 double.
The 5-10 double, yeah.
Yeah, so
it shouldn't be a problem for him.
It shouldn't be. Actually, it's not going to be a problem for him, because it's like 6 days. The 10K is 6 days before the prelim of the 5.
It's like one of the first finals.
Right, and I think the 5K final is the last day of the trial. So they spaced it out. It works well.
That's very nice of them.
Yeah, that's very nice. So I'm just very also curious who like are Cole Hawker and Yard really going to do the 5? You know, they're declared.
They're declared, yeah. Yeah, it's tricky though, right? Because I guess it depends on how the 1500s go, maybe. Because you have those. When's the final for that one? That one's on the 24th. And see how you recover after that.
Yeah.
For the 27th.
Yeah. So you have 3 days between, which again, you know, we talked about the recovery technology that I have today. This is a hard team to pick.
Yeah, it's really hard. I mean, a lot of these guys, like any of these guys that have ran 13:03 or faster, I think you could really pick any of them and they'd have a chance.
Yeah.
And then do you give Woody Kincaid a chance based on,
know.
you know, what he's done in the past? I mean, maybe not as much in the 5K as much as the 10K, but he did make the trials in 2021. So
yeah.
We
made the Olympics.
It's a tough one. And then you have Paul Chelimo just riding the back of this pack.
Oh, man.
Good old Paul Chelimo, man. Another sunset here.
These veterans are making it tough for us. So, you know, all right, we got to come up with 3 here. I'm going to go Grant.
Yeah, I will go Grant.
I'm going to go Grant.
I'm going to go Abdi Nur as one of my picks.
Yeah, he's going to be one of my picks. Yep. Did I pick Cooper for the 15?
I don't
remember. Was he my 3rd pick?
Well, it was definitely Yard and Cole, and then I don't know if we picked a 3rd. I think we just ran through the list.
Oh, okay. I can't remember. So maybe we didn't. Maybe we just ran through the list. I just, like I had mentioned, I really like Cooper. I think with his 12:54 and his ability to navigate traffic.
Yeah,
I think it bodes well for the 5.
It should.
You know, but it's like if Yard actually does the 5, he has to be one of the favorites.
Oh, his time isn't as good as Cooper's. Not that means anything, but yeah, I think that I think I'd give the nod to Tier in the 5K.
Yeah,
over Yared.
Yep. Cole. I'm gonna go Fisher, Cooper, Abdi.
Yeah, I'm on board with that. I think. Yeah, it's gonna be fun though, right? Like it's just gonna be one of those races where you're not quite sure who's gonna take it.
It's gonna be really fun, man. It's like not even. It's like a 1A, 1B, 1C. It's like everyone's tied. Everyone gets a gold medal.
Everyone. Yeah, I don't feel like Sean McGorty is gonna squeeze it out like he did last year at USA's. That was a monumental performance he put on last year. I got to hand it to him, but I don't see it happening again this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was things went well for him that day. And Nico, I think for the 5K, I think it's going to be a little fast and furious, and just seeing what he did at the NCAA championships, I think these guys can really, really roll in those last 2 laps. And like we were saying, it's not a wave light time trial.
Yeah, he's a good runner, but you need experience at the championship level. There'll be a good learning year for him. This will be like his Luka Doncic in the NBA Finals year.
Yes, exactly. Like I think he's so young, he's so talented, and it's good that we get to highlight these people and give them credit where it's due.
Yeah. Well, that's just the cool part of it, right? Is being able to follow these guys even from high school for some of these kids and see their career actually pan out. A lot of times it's hard to keep up that momentum if you're like the best high school runner, and then you have to go to being the best college runner and then being one of the best pros. That is not an easy task.
And if you look at this list, all of these guys are those guys,
yes.
Right? like Grant Fisher was that guy of his era. Cooper, Tier, and Cole were those guys of his.
Right.
Nico was that of his. Like they've had to be on it since the 10th grade. Yeah,
unreal. Yeah, and it's like for every Nico Young, for every Grant Fisher, there's a German Fernandez, right?
Right.
Who almost made it, didn't make it, or there's there's even guys that only made it to the high school level,
right,
and never panned out.
Yeah. So the fact that they're still doing it and still having success and still improving, I think, is testament to their commitment and hard work, because they were good. Yeah. You ran 13:35 in high school. Oh, hey, guess what? Now you're running 12:55 as a professional. So you're still improving, right?
Yeah. You have to lap yourself from already being elite.
Exactly. Going on to the women, some familiar names here. We have Ellie St. Pierre with the top time of a really fast time of 14:34. Then Elise Cranny with the second fastest. See Josette Andrews, Carissa Schweizer, Parker Valby, and Natasha Rogers round out the top 6. And then with Ella Donahue also in 7th. All these women have run under 15 minutes in the 5K. There is no Alicia Monson this season. She has
no Monson.
She's injured.
Yeah, for as good as I think these top women are, I think that a lot of the spotlight here, and you might agree with this, is on Parker Valby.
Yeah, I agree.
The new name on the block, obviously the cross country champion, the NCAA champion, cross training champion.
Right.
Right.
And there's kind of two ways to look at it, right? Like we talked about earlier, there's the fact that she, might be a little over raced, or maybe that she hasn't really, maybe she wins by a lot, right? Most of the races she's won have been by a significant margin. So maybe, she hasn't faced pro field yet. But the other side of that argument, which the one that I tend to agree with, is that like it's an untapped resource, right? Mm-hmm. We haven't seen her ceiling. She hasn't been as pressed as she could have been now racing against the pros. So she's ran 14:52, but she hasn't stared down an Ellie St. Pierre and Elise Cranny yet, right?
Right. Yeah. She's used to being the favorite in her races.
Right. So I think, I think Parker has a lot of potential here to do well, and kind of has a little bit of that. She's got some swagger, and mm-hmm. I had a chance to see her race when I was watching Mark at the Brian Clay. She broke the NCAA record in the 10K, and she was like, the pacers stepped off the track and she just like gassed it.
Yeah, kept it moving.
Yeah, so I think the rounds are going to be pretty tactical in this race. Just looking at the names and just like how the top seeds in this race are 1500 meter runner. They're also in the 1500s, so they're not going to want to do a ton of work coming after 3 rounds. So
right. Yeah. And they know that they can dictate the pace. And this is how it goes in championship races for the 5K, and even at like the Big West Conference level. Right. And you can have guys that come into the 5K fresh, but the guys that ran the 1500 or ran the 10K already the day before, they're the ones that are dictating the pace still. Like you don't see the fresh 5K people just go out and just crush it.
Yeah. It's similar. That 5K, the 5K prelim at the Olympic trials is probably similar to the Big West final 5K, right?
At least I like to think so.
Let's bring it back to the Big West. So, okay, this one, I like Ellie and Elise at the top again. And then I like Parker as the third option.
Putting the young gun in it.
Yeah, I am. I mean, it's anyone's game. These are all very talented women. Carissa Schweizer's coming around. She's been running well recently. She ran well in that same race that Elise Cranny ran against Safan Hassan. Carissa Schweizer threw herself in there as well and ran well. I've like I said, I think that we haven't seen Parker's true potential quite yet.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I would like to see her make it. I just feel like, kind of like we're talking about with Nico Young and Colin Solomon on the men's side, might not be her time quite yet. We haven't seen her at this level, like you mentioned. So I'm going to go with a more, I guess, safe pick. I'm going to go with Carissa Schweizer in that third spot, along with Granny and St. Pierre. And I mean, she had a strong performance at Portland Track Festival, and she was on the trials team in 2021. So I think that's a pretty safe call to make the team.
That's definitely a safe bet. That's a safe bet. And
I know, pretty boring. But, I didn't come on here to make hot takes. I came on here to learn.
Yeah. No, and when I was looking at this list, it came down to Schweizer and Parker for me as well. And I was a little biased towards, because I had the opportunity to see them both run. I saw Carissa Schweizer run at the 10 when me and Blake drove down there. And then I got to see Parker run at Brian Clay. So like when you see these athletes perform, you're like, oh yeah, you kind of feel like you were there, right? Like,
right, yeah. Well, that's scouting. That's how scouting works. You got to see them in person. You can't just go off the box scores.
Yeah. So I think that's gonna be a good showdown for sure. Going on to the men's 10K, a lot of the same as the 5K. We got Grant Fisher, 26:52, Nico, and Woody Kincaid, all three of them going sub 27 this year, which
Can I just say that anything sub 27 is just, it's still mind blowing to me that people run sub 27 in a 10K. It, as a 10K runner, it just doesn't compute.
Right. That is very true. It's like, to me, it's like the performances that we're seeing now is just like unheard of. Like when Chris Linsky ran 26:58 or whatever, that was like mind boggling. And now it's like you go to the 10 and it's just a line of dudes running sub 27.
Yeah, ridiculous.
And then Paul Chalimo is in there.
He's there. He has one of the better seed times actually in this one compared to the 5K, which used to be his event.
Veteran, right? He's
savvy.
He is a competitive as anyone else. He's very competitive. Connor Mance is entered.
Yeah. Marathon Trials champion. Connor Mance.
Marathon Trials champion. This would be a good tune-up for him. Sam Chalanga looked good at the PFT at the Portland Track Festival. Then you got some of your usual suspects. You got Drew Hunter, Ryan Ford, Manuel Bohr, Dylan Maggard, Zach Panning.
He made the bravest move at the Marathon Trials.
Oh yeah, he did. He was so brave. I like Grant Fisher, and I think I'm higher on Woody in the 10. I like Woody in the 10K, but that third spot, I'm not exactly sure. Is it Paul? Is it Chalanga? Is it like a Drew Hunter or a Dylan Maggard? Like,
it's so interesting too. Like, because with the 10K more so than these other events, the discrepancy in seed times is so much higher,
right,
than any other race. I mean, you have your three guys sub 27, and you have Chalimo at 12, and then you have Mance all the way at 25, and it just keeps going from there. It's like in a paced race, these guys would almost get lapped by these guys at the top, but because it's a championship style race, some of them might still find themselves able to hang on.
So is someone like Grant Fisher or Nico Young, are they going to want to keep the pace hot early on? Are they going to want to keep it in that low 27
it's hard,
range?
Right? Because I think that's what Grant Fisher wanted to do in the 2023 USA Champs. He wanted to just take it and not leave anything to chance, but it ended up biting him in the butt. And so now you have to look at it, it's like, I mean, I've ran 26:52. It's so much easier for me to run like a 27:30 than any of these guys.
Right.
And so, especially when it's a 27:30 that you have to run like a 4-minute mile in at the last mile.
Right.
So, yeah, I feel like he's just going to play to make the team. I don't think he's going to try to do anything heroic like he did last year.
So you think it's going to be a little bit more conservative?
That would be my bet.
Yeah.
And the other part of it too, and this is something that hasn't really factored into any of the other races, and it's a little ways out, but the forecast for this final is an 87-degree high of that day, which they won't be doing it at the peak heat of that day, but it still will have an effect on whenever they do run the race. It'll be a lot warmer than a lot of these other races are going to be, supposedly.
Yeah, that day will be warmer.
So I think it'll be more conservative.
Yeah. And another thing to think about here is the Olympic standard might come into play here.
Yeah, true.
Especially with like the next fastest seed after our top three guys that have the actual time is fairly significantly off the Olympic A standard, right? So Paul Chalimo with a 27:12, if he gets in the top three, it's not guaranteed. I don't know if he has
the world ranking, right?
I don't know if he has the world ranking in this event to make the actual Olympics. Paul Chalimo does race internationally a lot in like these like smaller races around the world, so he might have snuck some points in there somewhere. But like you're looking at someone like Chalanga, like Connor Mance is he going to do the Olympics if he makes it? But like,
that's a good question.
But also Connor Mance, unless he runs a 27 flat, like is his 27:25 going to be strong enough to make the Olympics? Like,
Right. Yeah, it's hard to say. And this was something that we questioned at the marathon trials too, outside of Connor Mance and Clayton Murphy, is like, is that third spot gonna be? And I think it ended up being like the world ranking was enough, but this is definitely gonna come into play here again for the 10K if it isn't Fisher, Young, and Kincaid.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it's going to come into play. So with that said, I mean, I know Nico's young.
That
Dad joke. But I mean, if you just like look at the odds and you look at like who's physically run the standard, and I might just have to go with our top three, like our top three seeds as our team.
Yeah, I think so too. It's the more you say it, it's like the gap between them is so high compared to the rest of the field. It just doesn't seem like anyone else is going to be able to do what they can do, especially when they're in peak fitness right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You got 6th place, Sam Chalenga, first at Portland Track Festival. Great time, 27:38, unbelievably fast, 40 seconds off of Grant Fisher.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
yeah,
the distance between them is so insane that like, it doesn't seem the only thing I guess is that with Woody Kincaid specifically, he hasn't raced since March.
Right.
Which, you know, as a pro runner, maybe that's a bad thing. Maybe it isn't. But
right.
It's a little concerning.
Yeah, it is. You know, when you're looking at sharpness and stuff like that. But again, you know, is 10K, can you for a 10K training, can you do like a simulated 1500 meter in workout to get the same effect rather than having to go fly across the country to go do one, you know?
Yeah, I guess you can rely on lifetime miles, right? Like this guy was first at the 2021 trials. He was first at 2023 USA Champs. So you can rely on that. And be like, I've been in these championship races. I've won them before.
Yeah.
I don't need to race this year to prove that I can do it again.
Yeah. And that might go for Chalimo too, you know?
Yeah.
And Grant Fisher did recently run 3:35 or something like that in the mile as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, he's sharp for
he's
sure.
Sharp, he's sharp right now. So that's going to be my pick. I'm really curious if somebody like Chalimo or Sam Chalenga like sneaks into third and like displaces like Nico Young. Is that?
Yeah,
I don't really know
pretty crazy.
I don't know how that works. Like, do we just send 2? You know, in that case,
yeah, I think we just end up sending 2.
I think you're right.
They don't hit the standard, but yeah, I'm gonna go with the top 3 for now.
Yep, I agree. Going on to the women, top performers, top entries are Weini, Kaladi, Elena Hennis, Natasha Rogers, Parker Valby, Rachel Smith, Carissa Schweizer, Kira D'Amato, and those are going to be your top seeds. We have some others that we'll talk about in a little bit, but I think Kaladi is a clear favorite here. I think you know she's been very strong. I got to see her run at the 10, and
what was kind of your take on her performance there?
I think she looked great. It was hard to sort of visualize everything because like if you look at like her time, right, of 33,
right,
and then like Schweizer was in that race and she ran 31:04. Also a great time.
Great times, 30 seconds back.
it was like, and Rachel Smith was in that race too. Rachel Smith, Carissa Schweizer, and Kira D'Amato were all in the same group.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But it was like it was a race within a race, kind of like.
Racing for second American behind Kaladi.
Yeah. So yeah, she looked great. She looked really good. I think you know she is a clear favorite here.
Yeah, and she has a great story too. I just learned this today that she basically came into the U.S. for the 2014 World Junior Championships and intentionally missed her flight back to her home country of Eritrea to get asylum in the U.S. and became a naturalized citizen in 2021 after you know spending 7 years here and now she competes as an American.
Wow.
Crazy story.
Great story.
Yeah, don't know the details behind it or anything, but yeah, she deserves her own documentary for this type of thing, especially to make a decision like that when you're that young. Like that's insane.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And it takes a lot of courage, I imagine.
That is awesome.
Really good person story, really good athlete story to root for this one.
Yeah, really good feel good story. Okay, so who are we picking here? I think Kaladi's number 1.
Yeah. How do we feel about Natasha Rogers? I mean, Natasha Rogers, we didn't really talk about her much in the 5K section. She hasn't raced since the marathon trials.
Right.
So, yeah, we don't really know where she's at fitness-wise.
Yeah,
but
she was there last year.
Going to be a top seed. Yeah, third last year.
We don't have Cranny. We don't have Monson.
Right.
You know, she hasn't done a lot this spring, but like when the chips are down, you know, she has a fast entry time. Is that entry time from last year, I imagine?
It's from last year, yeah, because she hasn't raced anything but the trials this year.
Yeah, so there's some questions there, right?
Yeah, I mean, at least with Kincaid, we knew that, you know, he had raced in March, so he's out there. You know, he's put something on the board.
Right.
But for Rogers, I mean, we don't know what her recovery looked like after the marathon trials, or you know where she's at. I haven't done enough research into it, or if it's even public information. But I mean, I'd like to think that she's one of the favorites to make the team in any other circumstances, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a little bit of what we've been talking about with some of these athletes who have not raced a ton. It's just you don't have a body of work. It's like it's almost like I want to pick Natasha Rogers as part of my top 3. I just, you know, you almost need some more work samples though, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I like proof of of you know, something that will give me some confidence.
Yeah,
going into it, the sharpening, or even just put something on the board.
Yep. I do like Carissa Schweizer in the 10.
Okay.
I
know her in the 10, not the 5.
Yeah, I like her in the 10.
Okay.
I think that, you know, I don't know if she was dealing with some injury stuff or whatever last couple of years, but I feel like, you know, maybe some of the ultra sharpness that you may need for a 5 is maybe not as necessary for the 10.
Fair.
So yeah, I think because I do like Carissa in the 5. I just, you know, I think that 1A, 1B with Parker Vileby in that event. So I'm going to give her the edge in the 10, but then I'm just kind of like on the fence with the 3rd spot.
I'm going to go with our number 2 seed here, Elena Hennies.
Yeah.
I think that she's obviously got a good time, and she is working on sharpening. Kind of like what I'm talking about. I guess we'll see if my theory is correct, if sharpening actually helps you in these championship races. But she ran a 1500 at Portland Track Festival to get some speed work in, and that I think that can only help you in a style of race like this, where it really is going to come down to how hard can you go in the last mile. Like every girl in this field can run, you know, 75s.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can run 75s. Sometimes probably even slower than that, depending on how I guess bundled up it gets in the front, and who wants to actually like take the lead. No one wants to take the lead in a 10K,
nobody,
especially in a championship level. So yeah, I think that it's going to come down to that last mile, and the ones that have worked on their speed the most are going to have the best edge. And I think Elena's got that one wrapped up.
We have a few more entries in this race that I want to talk about.
Yeah, a couple shout outs.
Stephanie Bruce.
Yeah.
Qualified. Congrats, Stephanie.
40 years old.
40 years old. She is. Wow. So she's married to Ben Bruce, who was my teammate and grad assistant coach and roommate and friend. He was in my wedding, longtime friend, very good friend. And they're married and they have 3 kids. They live in Flagstaff. We've been close with the Bruces, you know, long time, going on 20 years here. So shout out Steph. She's very inspirational. She's a good follow on Instagram. You know, she posts real perspective stuff, and you know, a lot of encouragement and a lot of just honesty too. So shout out Steph. We're gonna be cheering for you. We saw you. She also was in Orlando.
Yeah, the marathon trials.
Katie Izzo, Cal Poly alum.
Sneaking in there too. Yeah, let's go.
Did she overlap with you?
No, she didn't. She was a few years behind me, but yeah, like since I stayed in town, I still knew of her, and I knew she was killing it. And then she went over to Arkansas, I believe, and yeah, she crushed it there.
Right.
And yeah, like she's still holding it down, getting in the Olympic trials. It's a huge accomplishment.
All right. Well, that's all the events.
We did it.
It's not
a lot of names. Hope we went over all the ones that mean something. Maybe we'll see some sneak in there that we didn't go over. But yeah, I feel prepared.
I feel prepared. Yeah, I'm ready to go. I know exactly who is who. I'm gonna be able to watch like the semifinals of the 800 and know exactly who those people are.
Yeah,
like, you know, not the first round, not the last round, but the middle round.
Yeah, I think you might even give Joe Rubio a run for his money.
Oh boy, no, that's next. That's the S tier.
Yeah, hope I did Mark proud. I'm sure he'd have some takes here in my place, but I'm sure he can go over that with you in the next episode.
Yeah, no, we'll have a breakdown and then an Olympic preview. But thank you, Sean, for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Phil. Really appreciate it. It's fun hanging out and talking with you.
And thank you, everyone, for making it to this end of the podcast. And thanks for listening. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Lane One Talk Show for more fun running content. We'll see you next time. Peace.